Native Land Pod is a production of iHeart Radio in partnership with Reason Choice Media.
Welcome home, y'all. This is your favorite podcast, Native Land Pod, and this is our weekly mini pod. I'm Angela Rye with my co-hosts Tiffany Cross and Andrew Gillum. And today we are going to start with a listener question and jump right into something that's probably on a lot of our minds.
Greetings, Angela, Andrew, and Tiffany, the trifecta of the Native Land Podcast. Hi, my name is Keith Singleton, coming from Atlanta, Georgia. We found out that President Joe Biden has dropped out of the 2024 presidential election. I was saddened by that. However, I was elated with his endorsement of Kamala Harris for president, the top of the ticket for the Democratic presidency. For me, it's the only choice. Any other choice, I am not staying with the Democratic Party. I'm going somewhere else, and it's not going to be the Republican Party or that grand old party. Again, thank you for taking the time to look at my video. Hope this helps out. Again, you're listening to the Native Land Podcast, the innovators of us politics.
Keith, we're so grateful for your comments. Y'all make sure you keep them coming. I thought that we could use this, y'all, as a jumping off point for what should Joe Biden do with the rest of his term. Well, we know that he just recently did not only dropping out of the presidential race, which is historic in and of itself, but endorsing Kamala Harris on that same day, saying that she was the person that could take the party and this country to the next level. It is so important that he continues to solidify his legacy with the rest of his term. So since on this podcast, we like to keep our imagination, as Tiffany always challenges us and our good brother Andrew challenges us. Y'all, when you dream big, what does Joe Biden accomplish for the rest of his term?
I don't know if legally he can do some of these things, but definitely federal pardons, which we know he can legally do through the DOJ pardon office. Obviously, for Marilyn Mosby, Angela worked so hard on that, but multiple other people. I would like to see more non-violent offenders pardon, and not in a way that's safe, like, oh, but what will the Republicans say? Like, if you want to pardon 50,000 people, like, do it. There are people sitting, what happens in our prisons is inhumane. I used to focus on that a lot. And when you take away somebody's liberty, like, it needs to be like no other choice. And we've just been adversely impacted by a very punishing criminal justice system. So pardons is probably at the top of my list. Legally, I don't know if he can do this, but a federal protection for bodily autonomy for women. I think if he can pull that off, I'd like to see that. And if we're really letting our imaginations just like run free, imagine an America that is fair and, for the people, by the people, other people include us, reparations. I think reparations is something in a form. It may not be cash payments. Maybe it's land. Maybe it's home ownership. Maybe we don't pay taxes for the rest of our lives. Whatever that looks like.
I would like to see it.
I would like him to be bold enough to do that. So off the top of my head, those are the three things I'd say.
Andrew Gillum.
The courts. I just think
he is trying to do that.
No. But
this week it came out.
I mean, for it to be done, there's a lot that is intended, which means that there are going to have to be likely some maneuvers that Senate Democrats are going to have to make within their rulemaking process, within the accommodations that they have been willing to make to Republicans up to this point. I mean, we've even seen under Mitch McConnell's leadership where they had basically temporary suspensions of the 60 vote rule. And they brought they've used that process instead of preventively, like they have used it toward the Democrats, to prevent Democrats from moving along nominations and slowing down the process. I'd like to see us use it the other way. I'd like Schumer, hopefully with the support of all 49 other, 50 other Democrats, be willing to make some rule changes in order to get the president's agenda around the courts through the process. I think there are going to be Republicans who are critical enough of the Supreme Court that they may be willing to come with us in the House to get a bill through. And I think obviously we'll have to do what we can in the Senate. And then lastly, on the courts is the appointments of judges. This process has been slowed by Republicans to a screeching halt. You've got Senate Republicans who are from states where vacancies occur, who have literally stood, figuratively stood in the doorway from letting any nominations get through. They will not provide slips. I forget what they call them, maybe blue slips or Angela, you may know the terminology, which basically green lights the name of the person coming from their state to move forward in that committee process.
I will say
that was just on the course. And then the last thing I'll throw in there is just, we've got a letter already out there on the Fearless Fund. I'd love to see the president take very simple action as it relates to what is being requested by the Fearless Fund, which is additional protection and an executive order to expand on that protection.
Andrew's out again. I would just echo what Andrew was starting to say before he froze, but he supports this so much that he just could stay still for a moment. And I would say the Fearless Fund is actually where I was going to go, Tiff. It's so important for us to understand Fearless Fund is one of many victims of a people and an infrastructure that is trying so diligently to keep us back from and keeping us out of equitable outcomes. They, on one hand, it's like you didn't earn it. There's affirmative action policy that you shouldn't be able to be a part of. You didn't earn it. You shouldn't be able to go to schools, to get funding with us, to get access to capital. So you start your own thing and then they target you for that. So I absolutely think there should be an executive order, not only protecting entities like the Fearless Fund, but really doing the disparity studies necessary across the board in every industry, in every organization, and all systems of education to demonstrate why discriminatory impact is still just as significant as discriminatory intent. You cannot prove intent without the data. The data is there. We all know it. We've seen it. We've witnessed it. So we need some federal protection vis-a-vis an executive order to help us get across that finish line.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that I want to see him do is an executive order on voting rights. Everything that they've said in the past, the Supreme Court has said has not been the makeup of this court. So I believe if Donald Trump were in office, they would give him broad sweeping authority on executive orders. I think Joe Biden should test that leading up to the fall. Mm-hmm. I really do. I think that he should go hard on executive orders like he's if you can legislate from the bench, certainly you can do it from the Oval and prove them wrong. So yes, on abortion or reproductive justice. Yes, on affirmative action and equitable outcomes and opportunities. Yes, on everything else and voting rights, all the things that we know that we need. And reparations, absolutely. So I like all those answers.
Well, we were just focused on domestic policy, but I would add to that, I would revisit some of our foreign policy as well. Yes. This is in the world of, a blank wall that we can create democracy ourselves and what it looks like because, I don't know how realistic this is, but I would certainly rethink our allyship with the state of Israel. Israel is a nuclear power and a powerful entity, largely because the United States funds what we've seen in just the abhorrent things that we've seen happen in Gaza. And now it used to be an unsafe thing to even say this. And I think we can stand in allyship with our Jewish brothers and sisters, but we mainly stand on the right side of what is good and righteous. And what we're seeing happening there is not that. And the money being used to fund the inhumane treatment there, I would hope that President Biden could reconsider. I would also realign our foreign policy to some of the shifting foreign powers that we actually see. It kind of feels like the United States is like, a few decades behind the rest of the world on when it comes to global powers. So that's from a foreign policy expert, but also a few decades behind even when it comes to infrastructure. When you look at public transit in other countries and their bullet trains and, their streets and, just how different countries look. So I would love to see some change on that side as well. And, I have to say, when I do watch news and it is not domestic news, you really would be, just terrified when you look at what's happening in the country. And as I said on our main podcast, I hope you guys tune in if you haven't already. I could see an all-out war happening in the Middle East, and that would not benefit Vice President Harris. I do think, unfortunately, that would likely benefit Donald Trump, for this country to see its first female commander-in-chief. And so that definitely has my attention as well. So if there's something that Joe Biden could do before he left office to stay that state of unrest, that would also be helpful.
Yeah.
I think our brother Andrew is gone.
I was just about to say Andrew dropped. I was
Andrew
just
got
getting ready to
dial-up,
come
like
to
y'all
him.
said about me.
Yeah, I mean, we all do today. Mine isn't even recording on here. They got local audio recording. But Andrew, I wanted to come back to him because he it looked like the camera speed was picking up and then it dropped. But I was also going to say I have one that is kind of petty, but I think some of the things should be done like right away. I, for a long time on this podcast, have been calling for Merrick Garland's resignation. I think he should just appoint another head of the Department of Justice. I don't think that this Department of Justice, their failures around Tulsa, their shortcomings around some of the police killings that we've seen, and their inability to reach a conclusion on investigations, the targeting of Black prosecutors, Black elected officials, including our own brother Andrew, under this Department of Justice for failure to revisit any of Trump's targeted prosecutions is highly problematic. They have been non-responsive to what we know is a necessary justice for the Tulsa Race Massacre survivors. We have lost one since this administration has been in, with Uncle Red's passing. So it's time for these folks to get and receive the justice they deserve, and their descendants to get and receive the justice they deserve. If that can't happen under Merrick Garland's watch, then we should get a new attorney general. So that's another thing that I think he should do before he leaves, appoint someone else at DOJ.
Well, since
I don't really have
we're imagining things, do you have someone in mind for attorney general under?
You know who would be so good?
Who?
I would be so excited about it. I don't know if she's gonna come back to the administration.
Who?
Marcia Fudge.
Really? As attorney general?
Yes, I think that Marcia Fudge does not play. She is so serious about voting rights. She was great on that issue as chair. She cares deeply about children and SNAP benefits and equal education opportunities. She has an organizing arm behind her as a former president of Delta Sigma Theta.
Yeah.
Like, I think that, and she does not, let me tell you about October babies. She gonna go hard in the paint.
Yeah.
She get right up there and be like, let me tell you what you're not gonna do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even in her press conferences. So Marcia Fudge is a former congresswoman of Ohio. She left Congress to lead HUD under the Biden administration. She's since left HUD. And as Angela said, former president of Delta Sigma Theta.
She would be a gangster.
Yeah.
The other person who would be really good is A Girl Can Dream. I would like Ben Crump.
Oh, I like that.
I would like Ben Crump. Like, I think that it's time that the department that sits in the J. Edgar Hoover building. Can he also rename that with an executive order, by the way?
Yeah.
But if he's not going to rename that, I would like to see somebody who fights for the civil rights of all people running it. Like, just as an affront to J. Edgar Hoover. Just like piss on the building.
So I hate to be a dream damper, but I do wonder, with all the things that the DOJ is responsible for, would Ben Crump be ideal in that space? I don't know, and I know we all know Ben and love Ben, but like when it comes to our foreign policies,
Andrew's back. Andrew, I just decided that Ben Crump should be the attorney general. And I would just remind Tiff that, everybody, there are divisions and departments in DOJ.
That's true.
Nope, but he would be called, just to get them back. I also said Marcia Fudge.
I love the Marcia Fudge
I
reference
like
as well.
Fudge.
I would just say, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson comes from the tradition of being a public defender in the federal court system, which was unprecedented, unheard of, to be appointed to the Supreme Court. We have to do the same thing with the U.S. attorneys general, because we've looked almost exclusively at prosecutors as a tried and true, guaranteed must-have in order to be a U.S. attorney or the attorney general. And the truth is, the legal system is much more complex than that. There are many manners of accountability within justice. And I'd love to see someone who comes from a different seated background with a respect for the law to come in there and shake it up.
I love the public defender.
Okay, I have one more idea.
What?
Tish James.
I could get with Tish James.
For sure.
Tish
I get with Tish James. But now y'all got me kind of sold on the Ben Crump thing. Like, I like the idea of a public defender.
Yeah.
Being there.
Well, he's not a public defender.
He never
civil
worked
rights
as a public defender. I know he's not now, but he never worked as a public defender.
No,
I don't think so.
Okay.
Do you know him? No, I think he's always been a civil rights attorney.
His alignment with the intersections of law and justice, both through the civil as well as the criminal elements that he's represented, that he's worked in, because of the nature of his work, he's gotten to get involved with these families who sit at the intersection of prosecutions as well as victimhood within the criminal justice system, long before you ever typically see civil attorneys getting engaged and involved. He's there from day zero, oftentimes ushering these families through the criminal justice process, and then being there as a backstop when the civil side kicks up and kicks in. I just think his nuanced understanding is different than really much of what we can find anywhere. Wholesale endorser.
I like that idea.
Guess what? I love you guys.
We're over time. Sorry, I missed half of it.
Love you back.
We got to keep dreaming. No, Andrew, you did good. And the sad part was, as soon as your camera went on, then it went right out. So we're going to make sure that we have a part 2 on that so we can keep dreaming big. And for everybody else, we thank you so much for tuning in. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe. Tell your mama and them to subscribe. And tune in to our regular episodes, which drop every single Thursday. Welcome home, y'all.
Welcome home. Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.